So go ahead and get back on subject about what that book is going to be towards getting some of those, I guess, people that aren't really into archery because of maybe someone who used to hunt or someone that's got family that's target archery. These are the people that went out and watched the Hunger Games
Yep, absolutely.
and want to shoot and wants to come try archery, right?
Yeah, and so, what we want to do is provide a resource for those people. Unfortunately, there are a lot of places in this country where you don't have a facility of the magnitude of Lancaster Archery in your backyard. If you live around here, you're lucky. Some people have to drive, over an hour or a couple hours just to get to the nearest pro shop. And so what we want to do is we want to provide a resource for those people who want to get into archery and they want to get a good solid foundation. And so what we're going to do is put together a family archery guide, and it's going to go over everything from selecting equipment, whether you want to get in on the recurve side or the compound side, and then take people through some basic instruction of proper shooting form and getting everything properly calibrated for you, having equipment that fits, learning how to shoot, and then going from there into some fun things that you can do to sort of enjoy your recreational shooting, whether it's games, whether it's maybe some of the more offbeat things like the some of those aerial targets, and just pointing people to resources like USA Archery, the Archery 360 program that the Archery Trade Association has going, maybe the JOAD program where people, youth can get plugged into some Olympic development type style training and leagues and things like that. So I think that there's really a need for that. Of course, myself, as the editor of a bow hunting magazine, I tend to focus on the bow hunting side of things.
Yep.
But I also recognize that if you look at the past 5 years, there's just been an explosion of interest in archery, and almost all of that growth has been coming from the sort of the target side, if you will. Not that all those people are necessarily going to come out here and compete in a tournament like this, but they just want to shoot the bow. They want to see that mystical flight of the arrow. They want to feel the string against their face and watch that arrow sail down the range. And hey, a lot of those people may never go out and hunt, and that's fine because it's a great sport, and that's one of the awesome things about archery is you can come to it from wherever you want to come to it, and you choose your path, and we can all come together at something like this and enjoy it together and celebrate it for what it is as just an awesome pastime, an awesome sport, a great stress reliever, something that you can do for your whole life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know archery's been so good to me, no question about it. And we've kind of got some new matches getting ready to start here. I saw some pretty big name guys continuing to move their name tag. It's always nice when you're taking your name tag and you're putting it on another target versus throwing it in your bow case all crumpled up. So we're gonna have some pretty good matches coming up here. I saw Cousins back in. Dan McCarthy is still in. And one thing that Dan actually, for those of you who follow Dan McCarthy on the feed or on his Facebook and social media, he's actually battling vertigo right now. On his way here, he pulled over several times and was sick, and they've just had kind of a nightmare getting here, to be honest with you. And I talked to him yesterday for a little bit, and he told me that every now and then he just feels like he needs to lay on the floor and spread out because he said he just feels like he has no idea what his body's doing. And he was actually saying, I doubt I'm going to do very good at all. So, which a lot of good shooters kind of always play it down a little bit. Dan's an unbelievable shooter. Switched from Hoyt to Matthews a few years ago, and obviously it's good to see him still on the line. He's a great face for archery, super great guy, and extremely funny to follow on social media too. If any of you out there aren't friends with him on his Facebook page, he continues to put some stuff. Now I saw this guy shooting yesterday. He's got probably one of the most impressive hairdos in the building right here. I thought it was a helmet at first. Um,
You know, when you're not one of the top shooters, John, you got to do what you got to do to make a name for yourself. And I would come here with a do like that,
how
or a
warm
pink
is that?
shirt or something. Well, you know, it's cold walking from the main lodge across the way over here to the expo center, and so he doesn't have to wear a hat.
I like how he trimmed it down the side to get good anchor position and a good clean release. He's got like a perfect trim.
That's why, you know, he probably hunts too, and he doesn't need a kisser button because he's got that hair reference point.
Yeah, yeah. He doesn't wear a beanie, I can guarantee you that. There's no beanie that'll stretch over that hairdo. So let's see what he's doing here.
Let me ask you this, John, on a more serious note. When you're in a line like this, we've got all the shooters, there's probably 100 or more.
He's very crunched up right here. Let me kind of just see how compressed his front end is right there. He's really trying to aim hard. He knows, I can guarantee you, being in that position, his form on that last arrow was much different than what it was on the first two arrows, and you could see from that angle that his front end was very compressed back. His torso was almost facing forward to the target, and that shoulder was crunched up and pushed back against his neck. And what he was doing was he was really trying to focus on trying to hold solid and put that arrow in the middle. But what you can see is once you change your torso position like that, his left foot was further left than what it was on the first shots. He opened up his stance more, and you could see that arrow he was battling rights and lefts that whole match, and that's a huge part of that comes from an inconsistency in what we call the triangle. So if you looked at him from over the top, his triangle changed 3 different times, and he battled with his right to left arrows. Now, when you were looking there at Braden Gillentine, you could see that he had a lot better position towards the target. He was a lot more parallel to the target. And, and here, too, you can see the difference between these two guys, two much different stances. The guy in the tree ball shirt has more of a closed stance. You can see his front left toe is further forward than his right toe. And then the guy on the left actually is shooting a lot more open. That has a big effect on your rights and lefts, and a lot of people that don't spend the time looking down at their feet before they make that next arrow, they actually are making a mistake right there. That's the first step to my shot routine as an archer, is making sure that my foot position is the same each and every shot.
Man, I'm going to go even more basic on you. I always would have figured you had to stay completely behind the line, but it looks like you only have to keep 1 foot behind the line.
You got to straddle it.
You got to straddle it.
Yep.
You must.
You must straddle the line. Interesting there. We got Braden is actually taking a weight off the back of his stabilizer and putting a weight back on. See if we can get back to Jason. Jason, get on that stabilizer if you can. It was interesting with Braden. Obviously, he was battling a little bit on maybe his ups and downs there. So he actually he pulled that back weight off, and then he took some weight, a different weight, and put it back on. Obviously, right there, we're looking at the front of the stabilizer. Maybe we can get a pan to the rear bar, to the rear part of the stabilizer. Coming up here. So he pulled that weight off, and obviously that's going to change kind of his up and down movement. Obviously he's feeling something a little bit different today than what he felt yesterday, so he went ahead and made a running change based off what he was feeling during that end. We had a discussion earlier about the types of footwear that people have on, and honestly, I'm a big believer in shooting with the same type of footwear all the time. If you're a competitive archer, your feet send a lot of message to your brain. Obviously when you look at some of the natural type medicines out there, a very, very popular one is reflexology, because obviously you're trying to really keep that foot connection and what they call grounding. you're trying to keep that at an extremely high level. A lot of the Olympic Kenyan runners, they actually go through several hours of reflexology every single day. I was actually traveling on a plane to Africa one time and ran across some of the doctors for the Kenyan marathon runners, and they talked about the importance of that reflexology and how it affects their performance. The same is true with archers. You know, a lot of these guys that are out here shooting, you know, if they just throw on one pair of shoes today and one pair on tomorrow, there's a good chance you could feel just a little bit different. If you look at some of the real top level shooters, the Wilds, Gillantine, you look at Roger Willett, like they found their footwear that really makes them feel comfortable, and they continue to shoot in the same things all the time. Same with Levi. He's kind of always shooting in these same shoes that you can see him right there. And then, you know, Roger Willett, he really likes shooting cowboy boots. Then you look at Braden Gillantine, he's always shooting in like a skateboard shoe, more of a real flat bottom, wide surface shoe. And then we've got, you know, a lot of times the Wilds are actually in a pair of Nikes. But either way, they try to pick something that they're comfortable with and that makes them feel the same each and every time they stand to the line. So that's one thing to consider. I'm not a big fan of a super soft shoe that allows you to kind of sway back and forth. We talked about that yesterday. Someone had a pair of Crocs on. But, you know, personally, I prefer a shoe that has a wider platform so that I feel secure if I do happen to sway a little bit to the left or to the right. Got a little bit of conversation here. Let's see. Yeah, James is saying vertigo is like being on the wildest roller coaster all day long. That's for sure. I actually got vertigo one time in a tree stand. I sat in a tree stand all day long, and I was down in have you ever hunted down in Alabama?
No.
Well, I was down there, and, you know, down in Alabama, they actually have – I went to a spot, and he said I was borrowing a guy's stand. He had a climber at the bottom of the tree. And he said, just climb up to the top of the tree, and he said my bow holder and my backpack screw is right up there where I normally sit. So I climbered all the way to the top of this, and I was going and going and going and kept going and kept going, and finally I was about 40 feet up in this tree. I mean, it was the highest I've ever been in a tree, and I sat there for, I guess, about, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours just barely swaying back and forth in one of these really tall pine trees. And after it just kind of hit me out of nowhere, all of a sudden I realized I couldn't even really feel my legs. I was feeling so sick. Felt like I was on a ship. I barely made it down the tree, and I battled that for days trying to get my equilibrium back. We've got two really good shooters right here. These are, well, we've got a great, let's see here. We've got several different classes coming up. It's Kelly Ward on the left. Let's see. We've got, you can see what's awesome, what's really cool to me is watching the girls that are shooting at a level that's almost equal to the men's pro. And a lot of times, she's one of the best shooters in 3D right there. She's a great women's shooter. She's been really battling a serious case of tendinitis. She actually had a little bit of surgery last year. It took her most of the year to recover from that. And I actually talked to her yesterday. She said that she's really been battling it still, trying to find doctors that are able to help her through it. But a lot of times when it comes to tendinitis, and she's got carpal tunnel and tendinitis and some early stages of arthritis, as an archer, those are detrimental to a career. You know, you either got to deal with the pain every day you want to practice and shoot, or not. Can we go back to that men's match if possible? We've got two great shooters here that I want to show you right here in the middle of the screen. So Braden Gillantine is an amazing shooter. You can also see his footwear that I was talking about. He shoots with a very flat shoe. Very, very straight posture. Both of these guys have very equal alignment. So yesterday we were talking about the guy that's to the right of him. Is a former recurve shooter. You can see by his grip position too. He's shooting.
Yeah.
He's shooting with a very high hand. So he's, you know, he's got. You can see his hands very flat, which is kind of standard for a recurve shooter. A lot of them are coached with a very high wrist grip position. It's Alex Whipfer. We were actually. George Riles and I were talking about him yesterday, and then actually Cousins and I were talking about him yesterday as well. You can see that his alignment's really good, but look at the front hand position, comparing him to like Braden next to him. You can see that obviously being a former recurve shooter, he's very used to shooting with a high wrist. He's more used to shooting with his elbow turned out just a little bit more. You know, and that's always debate is kind of when you're looking at your hand, when you raise it to the target, you know, what position is your thumb in? Is your thumb, you know, he's shooting with his thumb at almost 3 o'clock. You can see that his hand is very, very, very flat. You know, most of the recurve shooters do a lot of build up on the grips to be able to consistently get into that high position. So I'll actually be curious to see if he's put some putty or something on that grip, because that bow that he's shooting is a very low wrist grip, which is going to feel pretty unorthodox for him as being a former recurve shooter. But you could see how relaxed that front bow hand was when he shot. You could see that bow just completely did its own thing. His hand was completely relaxed. You can almost see his fingers were relaxed to where they just kind of flopped out there. And that's exactly what you're looking for in a front hand position.
Well, I always have a lot of rookie questions for you here, John.
Okay.
Most of these shooters out there,
Yep.
are they using any kind of a lens on their sight to magnify that 11, or are they just doing it, you know, with no magnification?
It really depends. Yesterday we talked about, you know, some shooters shoot with a high magnification, but some of the shooters that are moving from, say, the hunter classes up into these classes, they'll shoot with a very low power lens. Some of the 3D shooters that are used to shooting a low power or no power lens, they'll kind of stick with that same type of setup. But guys that are traditionally full-time spot guys, they're definitely gonna have a higher magnification. We've got several of you guys on here kind of talking about, asking us to talk about the shoot a little bit more. And the one thing that's kind of tough for me here is, the one thing that I'm lacking is I don't really know where these cameras are changing. So a lot of times, as soon as I see something, we're moving to another camera. So we're kind of working with that communication just a little bit to be able to talk about some of this. You know, obviously the female pros came up. We did talk to them a little bit. So I'm going to try to get updated lists on these matches as well, so that I can actually see who's going against one another. That's one thing that I don't have right here. I'm just kind of looking at people on the line and not really realizing who's actually on these targets.
Do they not have a sort of a live
They do have a live
scoreboard?
feed. Everyone else is getting to see it, but with us up here, we're having to...
We can probably get it up on one of these other screens,
Yeah, maybe
John.
they could do that. I would like to see if I could get an actual who's in what matches as these things break down, because I'm not able to see that. I'm kind of up here on the second deck looking at everything from a different angle than a lot of you guys at home. So All right, everybody, we're back here. I tried to get set up so that I can actually see some of these matches as they're happening, which is going to be really good. Some of you at home are kind of saying that that some of the feed is a little bit delayed, and again, a lot of that has to do with just your bandwidth and your streaming. Let's see. So we've got Eric is asking here, back to the magnification topic. He said he's got a Super D scope, 6 or 8 power for spots. What do you suggest? Personally, I don't like super high powers because obviously it magnifies your movement as well. And for me, when I get into a tournament like this, during a practice round or during some of the qualifications rounds, I might like that magnification. But then once you start to get into a head-to-head situation like this where you start to get a little bit of tension, obviously it's magnifying your movement. So if you start to have a little bit of movement, that girl right there in the middle, to me, that draw cycle is hindering her ability to shoot. You really need to be able to lift your bow straight towards the target and then draw your release hand back towards your face. Fairly common mistake people make with women and kids is giving them too much weight. You can see the girl on the left, she was able to lift that bow up, draw a release hand back to her face without really having to do a very dramatic push-pull. There's a push-pull. You could see she had to pull back and then drop her shoulder into position, and what will happen is there's going to definitely be opportunities to forget about putting that in the correct position. If I was working with that girl there, I would reduce her pulling weight just a little bit so that she was able to lift her bow arm to the target and then pull her release hand back towards her face and be able to have her pin more settled towards the target that she's shooting on rather than having to acquire the target after a real jerky motion like that. You can say she's even having to push her hip into it as well.
Let's on that too now. Talk to me a little bit about that first shot that she made. Was a fairly, poor shot. What do you do when you're in a match like this? I mean, you're kind of putting yourself almost out of it before you get started. You have a first arrow like that, John.
Well, I mean, you do have 12 arrows, and the key is
she came back pretty strong.
Yeah, yep. The key is, you have to shoot every arrow individually because the only thing you can control is what you're doing within your little box. Just as easy as she made that bad shot for her first, your competitor can easily make that same mistake on their last. So the last thing you want to do is put yourself in a position to where your competitor literally doesn't have any pressure on him at all because you've ultimately beat yourself. In my opinion, the worst way to lose is when you lose to yourself. So I just think that it's critical when you're in these types of matches that all you do is focus on what's happening within your 4-foot radius. You've got a 4x4 box. You don't have any control on the people that are next to you. The only thing you can control is what you do each and every time. And the main thing you have to do is reach into that quiver and pulling each arrow out. And a lot of times if I ever made a bad shot, I actually kind of talk to my arrows, because one thing that I learned from a coach one time that was really, really important was there's no possible way to pull an arrow back into your quiver once you've shot it. So once that shot's happened and that arrow's in that paper, regardless of how bad that shot actually is, the only thing you can control from there on out is the arrow that's still in your quiver. Mm-hmm. So you kind of see there on that bottom right target, that top spot, obviously she sent one out there into the 7. If I had to make a shot like that, I'd probably be mad, look into my quiver, and I'd probably say, which one of you guys want to shoot a 10 for me? And pull one out and try to move on to the next one. So that's a huge thing for any archer, is learning to let go.
Basically, what you're saying is don't don't turn one mistake into 2 or 3.
Yeah, you can't let what's in your quiver or what's not in your quiver affect what still is in your quiver. So, you know, you kind of have to just take every single shot and let it go. So I'm kind of getting some signals here. You can see, well, we couldn't quite see, but at the top of your screen you saw there McCarthy was actually shooting with his guy. His guy still had an arrow left. Dan stayed on the line with him, didn't look at the competitor, just looked forward to the target. We're going to go to commercial.
This will be the third of 4 scoring minutes.
Score now is what they were shooting, 15 or 20 years ago. So it really, archery just really allows you to continue to compete regardless of your age or, in a lot of cases, your physical condition. Now, I do believe that your physical condition plays a huge part in your ability during some of these matches. We've kind of got we've got Tim Gillingham and Logan right there. It kind of looks like David and Goliath. There's huge height difference.
You're a pretty tall guy, John. What, is there
Tim
an advantage or a challenge to being a tall archer?
Well, both. I'm kind of looking at Tim here. He looks, to be honest with you, Tim is one of the, probably he can go down as one of the top 10 archers of all time, based on some years where he's just dominated the 3D circuit. He's won some huge tournaments. He's got a lot of credibility to his name. And, I wish if we were still looking at Tim there. We're looking at two guys here shooting. And what's really nice, a lot of the amateurs their form is getting so much better over the last years, and I think a big part of that is because of all the different avenues for people to get information. This guy on the left has great form right here. He's got a good position on his hand, but that was a controlled punch. That was a punch with a exaggerated pullback. It looks like he put it right in there, but it was a little bit risky. Guy on the left, let's see how he looks on his thumb position is very similar to mine. Thumb is straight. He's not curling his thumb around there, but once again, kind of the same thing. He wasn't really pulling through at the same level as what some of the top pros would. However, obviously, he shot 3Xs, which is for me, that's a big thing that people need to learn is how do you shoot your 10? I think Bud Folk said a long time ago that archery is simply a two-step sport. Step one is learn how to shoot a 10. Step
two is repeat.
Repeat step one.
It's the same thing. Randy, Randy Ulmer, who does writing for me regularly, and that's it. I mean, the thing that Randy stresses is that theoretically, you can have the worst form in the world, shoot a 10. If you can do the same exact thing over and over again, you can do it. The problem is that when you have a bunch of bad habits and bad form, you can't repeat it. So that's why, you know, you want to clean things up and get the most, you know, simple and repeatable shot routine that you can, because it helps you to avoid those inconsistencies from arrow to arrow.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly right. So the thing is, if you can learn how to actually do your step 1 first, then it's a matter of really perfecting that step 2. And there's definitely ways that are more consistent to step 1, which is what a lot of coaches try to do, is put these guys into a position to where they've eliminated the majority of opportunity to make mistakes. And ultimately, they're putting you in a position where you have the best chance at executing a good shot. So we're looking here right now. I'm able to get some scores. So we've got Logan Wild and Tim Gillingham. They're tied right now at 65. You know, we're updating still, but, you know, after 2 ends anyway, you know, I'm able to look at several things. Jimmy Butts was up by 1 point on Gomez.
Jesse
you know,
Broadwater is tied there.
Yeah, we've got Jesse Broadwater tied with Sam Wolthis. A lot of super tight scores. I guess Cousins is up 1 on Rick Baker. We've got Rio up 1. Chance Boboff is actually tied with Paul Tedford, an awesome shooter. That'll be a really good match. Both those guys are obviously big name guys. Nathan Brooks is up 2 in his match, which is great. McCarthy's still tied. You know, you look at these scores and you realize, you know, every single arrow matters. You know, you look at Levi Morgan, he's up 1 on Mark Pasmore after that second end. Christopher Perkins has been shooting lights out. And hopefully we're going to stay with Levi right here in this match.
Like he's
Hi,
looking
Mom.
right at you.
Yeah, he is. He was looking
He's
at,
like, hey, Dad. Hey, Dad.
I think he said Mom. So, but yeah, we kind of get a good little look here at Levi's bow. He told us yesterday he started shooting that just here last week, so he hasn't put a lot of time into it. But he said that it's really feeling good for him out of the gate. So this will be. I'm looking forward to seeing
how much
some.
time, Dad, as we get ready for him to shoot here? How much time did it take you to get comfortable with a new target bow and really want to feel like you go out there and shoot your very best with that? I guess it depends on the bow, doesn't it? Some of them are quicker than others.
Yeah, there's been times where I've picked up a bow and just right away I'm like, this thing feels so good. But then there's other times where, you know, especially when, for me, it was always when there was a big difference in the cam system on a bow. Because obviously for archers, a big part of their feel is how that bow feels at full draw, more so than the draw. You know, a lot of bow hunters, they want a smooth draw cycle. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of, they just pull it back and they're like, that bow feels good, right? I mean, a lot of times a bow hunter buys a bow based on 1 or 2 pullbacks in an archery shop. Whereas these guys are really.
Okay, I've got a number of people ask. For those of you
I think we're okay. Hopefully all you guys can still hear me over Rob talking out on the floor. Sometimes there's a little bit of interference between the 2 mics, and it's hard for me to see what's going on between the 2. But I think for a lot of these archers, if the cam system's at full draw, if the holding weight and the valley feel similar from one bow to the next, they can transition pretty fast. But if if all of a sudden, like, for example, when Cousins switched from his Hoyt to his Prime, they didn't have a target cam. So obviously he was used to shooting a 65% let off with a real spongy wall, but because he likes to pull into his wall pretty consistent. And so when he switched bows and he had a real hard wall at a higher let off, it was a completely different feel. So it took quite a bit of time to get used to that. Hopefully we can go back over to, we've got Levi right here on the left. So I'm curious to see what his timing's like today. Yesterday, he had really consistent timing and stroke. He's shooting against Rob Morgan, and Rob is a phenomenal shot as well. Let's see how he looks here. A little bit of twinge in his thumb. Obviously, he knows there's a camera on him right now. So that one's in there. He's got a great looking target face going. He's clean right now. Be nice if he, pretty much this match, for the most part. Actually, that's not Rob Morgan. That's Pasmore. So that was my mistake there. But this match is over. I mean, Levi isn't quite on as good a time as what he was yesterday. Yesterday, you can see that I saw that happen, and there he's out.
He's starting
low.
to break down a little bit at the end there.
And everyone at home, I'm sure, saw that. You could see he knew that all he needed was one arrow to win that match. Luckily, that's all he did was put that one out. I mean, that's 2 points though here. So, let's see how he was up by 2, and obviously that guy dropped some right there. So I think he's still good to go. But you can see that's what I was telling you a minute ago. You can't put emphasis on the fact that you make a bad shot, because if you pull back your first arrow and you send one out, your competitor can do Levi's one of the best in the game, and you could see he was winning a match. He really didn't have that much riding on that arrow. All he had to do is put it in the target, and he was going to do good. He kind of only had to put it in the gold. But obviously that fast, everything changes. And one thing that I can tell a lot of people back at home is the importance of having a shot routine has several things that make it important. One is it helps you be repetitive in your actual form and your consistency. But 2, if you're able to consistently occupy your mind with the process, then you're way less likely for an opportunity to happen just like that. Levi was in a zone. He was making shots. He was focused on winning the match all the way up until that last arrow. Then all of a sudden he realized, okay, well, I've won the match. I really don't have to, pressure's off. I won the match. He's on camera. So he kind of pulls back, and then probably instead of going through his focused shot routine like he was on those first arrows, he had just a small mental breakdown, and then all of a sudden here comes the jitters.
Yeah, and let's see what happens on this match too, because Deaton, on his first arrow, wasn't perfect, but
Deaton was a little low.
He's got a chance here. Let's see what happens on the third arrow here from his opponent.
We've got Dan McCarthy shooting. Danny's shooting.
And he just shot lights out, I mean, he made a good shot there, so we'll see.
Well, Danny must be on a different target. So we've got, there we go.
He's not just there to the right of Deaton?
No, we've got, so that's right there on target 15. McCarthy's actually on 14. He's tied with Dustin Bounce. So they're on 15. We've actually got Bridger Deaton going against Scott Starnes. And Deaton was already up 2 on Starnes after the 3 ends, so that match right there is over. And actually, Levi after 3 was tied with Mark, so this could get interesting on that target. Then we've got Christopher Perkins is way up on Shane Wills, so we've got Logan going against Tim Gillingham. If possible, I'd like to get over, well, I guess it's probably done now, but I would have liked to seen how Tim shot on those last arrows. A lot of these guys that aren't super consistent and that are sometimes they punch the trigger, sometimes they don't, if you put a camera on them during these last arrows, you can a lot of times really see the mistakes come out. Broadwater still tied. It'd be nice if we could get a camera over on target 11 A and B, because I would like to know what happened with that Broadwater match too. That would be pretty dang important to see for all of us out there. Cousins had a pretty comfortable lead on Baker. Rio was up 1. So we've got several big name guys. Chance and Paul were still tied. So we've got several targets here that there's going to be some pretty dang interesting results coming out of.
You talked about punching the trigger, John. How many of these guys are actually using a trigger release versus a hinge or a true back tension?
Well, the thing is, even if someone's shooting a back tension, that doesn't necessarily mean they shoot it right. Just because someone's shooting a thumb trigger doesn't mean they shoot it right. Just because someone's shooting a caliper release doesn't mean they shoot it right. You look at a caliper release, probably the best there is right now at shooting one's going to be Michael Braden. He does a really good job of actually executing perfect shots that way. But then you look at a thumb release, and there's guys out here that have a thumb release, and they do their best to pull on it, but they still go ahead and kind of punch it and then make a really nice follow through instantaneously to where it looks like a perfect shot, but it's not necessarily a right shot. So the majority of the people out here are trying their best, especially in the pro class, to execute good shots. And I would say the top 10 guys that are consistently always in the upper ranks, they're shooting a release the correct way. And you'll have the occasional guy that slips in there with a really big score, but then the next weekend he's not. So we got a camera up here on some of the staff up here on the upper deck. You can see we've got a pretty great group of people up here.
There's us.
So say hi. Hey, everybody. So you can see we're up here kind of looking at this whole thing from up above and doing our best to keep up with all these matches from the upper deck. So.
And it's a lot to keep track of. I mean, there's a lot going on. Like you said, it's a whatever you called it, a grand cuckoo clock or whatever.
It is.
I mean,
yeah.
There's 100 shooters on the line, and you can only really focus in on a couple of them at a time.
Yeah.
And I see what's coming up on the comments here, and people have a lot of requests of different pros that they want to see, and maybe we can hit Chance or Rio on the next end. But again, we're also trying to get in on which one of these matches is close and see a little bit of drama here.
Yeah, we're wanting to find some drama, and in all honesty, there for those of you listening, I think what they're looking at too is some of these shooters that are a little bit ahead.
Broadwater's tied
with
Sam Walthus there at 98.
Yeah, that's going to be big. So
Cousins is up 2.
We need to get the final because
this wasn't the fourth end, was it?
Yes, it was.
This was. Okay.
Yep. So that's one of the problems. We're kind of almost as delayed here as you guys because I don't have real-time scoring up here in the booth. But I think some of those shooters like Rio is obviously ahead in that match, so I think they're just focusing on some of the shooters. They're realizing some of those shooters are going to advance.
We're going to cut to commercial here in 2 seconds.
All
we'll
right.
have some results when we get back.
Sounds good.
Where does Levi Morgan shop for the best competition archery products? And where does he find the latest 3D equipment? And where does he buy all of his bow hunting gear?
Only at LancasterArchery.com.
All right, everybody. We're back live. And this is
Rob saying we're going to have some shoot-offs here? Or?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Definitely going to have some shoot-offs, no question about it. For those of you listening out there, you know, and I guess there's a comment on here struggling to see some of the video and everything on the phone. Obviously, your streaming connection is going to depend on how well you can get this live stream. Obviously, if you're on a 3G connection or you're not on a high-speed broadband, then you might struggle to keep up with the amount of information that's coming across right now with the video, you know, an HD video and audio feed. So try to get to a good Wi-Fi connection where you're not, you know, sharing your broadband with everybody. So we've got some scores coming in right here. Pretty awesome.
Well, Bridger Deaton just held on for a point victory there.
Yeah, Bridger won. That's great. So he must see.
Levi held on for a point.
Yeah, 1 point.
129, 128.
He was lucky there to not be pushed into a shoot-off. Braden Gillantine out. Wow. Whiffler. Obviously, I've been commenting on him. I really like his form. His posture is set up very, very similar to mine.
Tim Gillingham, 131 to 130.
Beat Logan. Yep. So the hammer is bringing it today, guys.
Broadwater's going to be in a shoot-off.
We got Osterlink kind of crushed Garrett there. Yeah, this is looking really, really good.
We're going to have a shoot-off there with Jesse Broadwater and Sam Wolfus.
Yeah, and that's going to be, I can tell you right now,
Dave Cousin. Oh, Rio Wild's going to be in a shoot-off.
Here we go. So all you wanting to see Rio, now's the time. Cameras, if you guys can.
Chance was defeated. Chance Babov.
I can't even believe that. So this is how fast things happen. I mean, Tedford kept the pressure on Chance, and then in the last end, Chance got just a little bit tight, and he missed as many arrows in one end as he missed all day yesterday.
He lost. Yeah.
Can you believe that?
He gave it up at the very end there.
Yep. So hopefully on this camera angle, we're going to be able to get a good look at these men's pro and these matches, because it'd be nice if we could kind of get a little bit more of a wide-angle shot. You know, if Jason can – I don't know if we could put Jason kind of down there more towards that floor mic so that he can get a shot, a camera angle on these guys to where we'll be able to see all of them shoot at one time. That would be really good. This is getting really exciting. I always, you know, some people don't think watching archery is fun at times, but when it comes down to this, it's really fun because you see these guys that are absolutely in the zone and so good at what they do, and then all of a sudden they have a minute and a half breakdown.
Well, it's like an NBA game.
Yep.
You don't necessarily want to watch all 48 minutes, but you want to tune in for the end of the fourth quarter. And this is the end of the fourth quarter for some of these guys here.
So let's check this out. We've got Broadwater against Sam, and we've got Rio going against Garrett. This is going to be
single arrow format, Rob is saying.
Well, yeah, so it'll go down to it should go down to they're just going to shoot for X's right now for the first 2 rounds, and then a lot of times they'll go closest to center. Okay, I'm actually
So who have we got here, John?
Well, so look at the comfort level of Jesse compared to the guy, you know, on his left. Obviously, we've got. I wish they all shot individually. It was hard watching everybody shoot it at the same exact time. But
well, they're not showing the targets either.
The one thing that I will say is, I wish we could get a good close angle. Well, it's hard because we want to see all 4 of these shooters shoot. And actually, we missed Broadwater. Look at that. That's what I'm talking about. Just pounds it. But then look at Wolf, the same thing. boom.
It's like two heavyweights just exchanging body blows.
Duking it out, yeah. I mean, honestly, it's kind of a bad feeling when you're in a shoot-off and you pull back and your shot breaks and you just see your arrow just center punch the dot and you're like, oh, yeah. And then you look 3 feet to the right and you realize he's got the exact same thing sitting there and you're like, oh, dang it. So we just saw a handshake here with McCarthy. I'm not sure who won there with that McCarthy match. We've got a cool little angle here again of the big four guys. So, you know, Jesse looks so chill, so relaxed all the time. He's literally got his nerves are like non-existent. It's really fun shooting with Jesse, but you know, obviously, and he's pretty much emotionless as he shoots. But then, you know, if you look next to him, on this shot angle we might not see, but you've got a lot of facial muscles being used, you know, against Jesse's competitor. I've never really been a big fan of having a lot of muscles. Look at the posture difference. Look how lean back Rio is. He's very swept back, very straight arm. You know, he's got a lot of – okay, so that is questionable.
Jesse did not make his best shot there.
Yeah, but Jesse's got a 10, and Wolfus is, like, questionable. Be nice if we could pan and actually see some of these different targets. That's questionable on the bottom. I think that's out. Rio's getting a little worked up, kind of red in the face. Ooh. Oh, they're calling it a tie. That's a looker right there. That is not. Look, wait. Here we go. That is not a 10. Well, I guess I don't want to be the guy on camera.
You don't think that's got a tiny bit of line? They gave it to him.
No, they didn't. That is out. I thought so. So Jesse advances. So Rio coming down to the final end right here. He does not look happy to be in this position. So let's see.
So is this closest now? Closest to the X?
I'm not 100% sure if it is or not, but this dude on the right he's super chill right now. I mean, he is laid back. He's in it very, very. There's Rio's shot. Oh, he kind of pulled through that one. So let's. Oh. They might have both missed. But if it's closest to center, Rio's in. You could see on that last shot there. Okay, they both missed the 11, so we've got two 10s. They're still in it. But what I wanted to point out there was that time when Garrett made his shot against Rio, you could see that he wasn't as fluid in his actual pull-through as what he was in the previous shots.
Well, there you have two guys that both had a chance to win it, and both of them felt just a little bit of pressure.
They're both making marginal shots. So this is really going to come down to a fluid shot. And like yesterday, when I was up here talking with Levi, we talked about just forgetting what's happening with your pin and just pulling through the shot fast. Rio's going to try to slap one in the middle here pretty quick, get the crowd pumped up. He's holding very long for Rio. Rio, two hammers. Rio put one right in the middle. And Rio knows it too. He looked down there and knew.
Now, what are they doing here? They're going to
a
full end? Or?
Yeah, well, no. What's happening is they both know they shot 11, so evidently we don't have a closest to center rule here. So they're just going to keep shooting until one of them misses an 11. So huge difference in these guys' posture, though. You know, he's one of the few that can shoot like that in the world. No question about it. He looks very focused. That is absolutely pounded. 211s again. Yeah, that was great. See, imagine having, you've already had, so you're on your 5th shoot-off arrow, and he put that thing, you could literally see yellow all the way around that shaft. I mean, he absolutely crushed the spider.
You don't know who this other shooter is?
Oh, yeah, yep. So that's Garrett. Can't really pronounce his last name. I'm a big nickname guy. A lot of these pros, I kind of just, that's out. This could be for the match right here. But
I was just going to say,
he's got some movement in the front hand.
This guy has
he's swaying.
seemed a little calmer
He's swaying.
overall, and he just lost it.
No.
No?
Oh, unless they went closest to center. Wow.
Say, I thought Rio was just putting himself out right there, and then
Rio's still in.
Same thing.
Yeah, you got to just
like you said, you just can't.
It all comes down to timing. And like I told you, that guy looked like he was.
Wow, Rio pulled it out with really not his best shot at all.
Yep. Like I said, the only thing you can control is what's in your little square that you're standing in.
Right there, you can tell from his expression, he knows he's kind of lucky to be alive right now.
Yeah,